time is 3:30. All committee members are present, which just takes us to the third item, on the agenda. We have a couple sets of meeting minutes with regard to August 28th. Mr. Garza, you weren't there, so Councilman Brown will need a motion from you for the August 28th meeting minutes.
Can I motion over?
Just one because you were absent on the 11th.
So I'll motion.
All right, there's a motion on the floor for August 28th. Meeting minutes is presented. Further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. It takes us to the September 11th meeting minutes. Regards to this going to have to come. Make motion. Motion on the floor for support.
We talked
Go ahead.
we talked about excuse, release the executive change, say on excuse action. Change the excuse.
You said that for, said that in without mistake. That was that excuse?
Well, he texted me, well, I texted you and then asked you where you're at. Texted me a little bit later, but I didn't check my phone. Well, I did tell you that he said he was in the meeting.
You said that you were in the meeting.
Yeah, it was like towards the meeting.
So you. He didn't. So what we can do is we can excuse it. We understand that has to go to all the staff. They have to be notified in advance, just in the future.
Well, that's my
Okay.
I said it's the president of the council.
Right. But yeah, because he was in the committee, so we know that. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. Okay, so there is an amendment being proposed. Do you accept that amendment?
I accept them.
All right. Any further discussion? Saying, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. It takes us to public comment on agenda items. We've got a number of items before us. We have a couple ordinances that deal with pilots. We have a resolution, actually two resolutions that pertain to 1102 South Washington Avenue. I knew we were being asked to set up an over district and move forward with an over cert. And then we have some holdover conversation from the last meeting, budget priorities and amendments to the zoning code. So if there's anybody that is maybe not going to be able to attend the entire meeting, maybe not speak specifically to an agenda item, get to that agenda item, we will give you 3 minutes at this time. Otherwise, when we come to those respective items, we'll take that public comment at that time. Anybody that needs to speak now? Okay. So if you want to just very quickly state your name for the record, we'll give you 3 minutes.
So Chris Keck with the Plumbers and Pipefitters Local 333. I'm also the president of the Lansing Building Trades. Spoken with a lot of the building trades here in Lansing. We're here to speak against the 2 pilots for the Lansing Housing Commission. These are going to be projects built with Grand Rapids contractors, again, Lansing taxpayer dollars, and we strongly oppose these 2 pilots.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Anybody else speak to specifically an agenda item? All right, seeing now, we're going to move on. We do have in your packet, you have the item to be considered. This is item B. So ordinance payment of the tax in Riverview 220 apartments, 220 East Kalamazoo Street. Just very quickly, I'll give a quick recap. Mr. Fleming, who is the executive director of the entity that's actually applying, is actually at the conference, so couldn't be with us today. But as he has said in committee, and obviously addressed us during the public hearing, this is a LIHTC project, so it's a housing tax credit project. Application again, or applicant, sorry, is Lansing Housing Commission. What they're doing is applying, and it's actually BANC, they're applying for 5% pilot service charges over 4 years. They did receive a 10% pilot from the administration last year, but construction costs have increased, at least that's what they referenced as the need, or what has necessitated essentially this request. We had Doug Fleming before us on September 9th. We had a public hearing this past Monday. We did get some comment in support of and in opposition to. And that would be both in written format, but also as part of the public hearing and now as part of our committee. In terms of support, most folks have referenced this regionally for affordable housing. In terms of the opposition, it's been a variety of, we can't take it on for the entire region. The Lansing Housing Commission, there's been some concern with regard to them in terms of owners and operating this type of housing. And then there's been some concern with regard to temporary construction jobs and whether or not we get those. And then also the pilot itself and the amount of money that we would be essentially foregoing this over 4 years. With regard to the actual project, it is, or would be, sorry, a 4-story building. This would be right across from the CTC. Being contemplated is 63 housing units. 7 of those would be market rate. 56 would be low income. They would actually have project based vouchers attached to those. In terms of the 7, there was some question about whether or not somebody could move in with a tenant-based voucher to one of the market rate if we weren't able to essentially market those and actually work those to folks that kind of make market rate wage. And the answer was yes. There's also 2,000 square feet of office space being contemplated with regard to the 7 market rate and the office space we don't have or tax pay for those. So it's probably only essentially apply to 56 units of affordable. Talked a little bit about the bottom line for the city in terms of money. So with that, this is our final consideration in terms of this committee. And if this is sent out today, this would be up for approval on September 30th. Right? Yes. Okay. Is there anybody that would like to speak very quickly to this before we engage in committee conversation? Public comment? Mr. Brown, Mr. Garza?
I think we've heard everything we needed to hear about this project. We had the public hearing and back to committee, so I don't have a problem kicking out of committee for final passage or denial on the 30th.
So we just get a motion. So this is actually no, so this would be B only.
No motion to move forward to council.
It's not more for discussion. Seeing hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Wonderful. And so, and we know, right, we have the same applicant with regard to C, same request, 5% over 40. They also received a 10% from the administration. And so even if this is denied, they could still move forward with the project. It might have to be value engineered to scale it down a bit, but they could move forward. Let's see, this is it's essentially a vacant parking lot across from the State Airport building. And what they're looking to do is build 55 affordable subsidized units. There will be no market rate as part of this. There will be no commercial use as part of this. Again, comes with place-based, project-based vouchers, 11 one-bedroom units, 36 two-bedroom units, and 8 three-bedroom units. And we talked at length about financials for the city. We did ask, it's interesting that Mr. Kex here, we did ask about the construction manager. I think you actually asked general contractor and what that might look like. Mr. Fleming stated that that entity has not yet been selected with that within the next 2 weeks. They're going to try to nail that down. So we will open it up for conversation. I'm assuming nobody wants to address this item from the public since first wasn't addressed. All right, council members, Mr. Garza.
I guess I do have one question. Sure. I mean, same feeling about this one as the past one, but regarding these new houses coming on the tax roll, all these different properties with the different developers around the state, do we have capacity, development planning to monitor and to inspect on a regular basis?
In terms of building safety?
Building safety is correct.
Yes, so, at the current stage of where these projects are, certainly Monday, depending on if the 5% is voted on, if it is, it sounds like LSU is able to move forward. If not, to Councilman Hussein's point, they'll have to revise their numbers to see if they can make it work with that. Assuming all of that's a yes, which may have another, a little bit, they'll have to select a general contractor, they'll then have to create work specifications, and then the state of Michigan will require them to bid that out. All of those subs, those trades will have to bid on that, and they'll have to select. So I imagine we won't even see plan review for another 6 to 9 months at Building Safety Office. And at that point, currently averaging a 30-day turnaround on plan review for a project of this size. So 2 at the time. So I don't have a worry at this point, especially knowing that we likely won't receive those councilmen for another 6 to 9 months.
All right, thank you. Right. I think it, but and I think it actually goes beyond that, right? So it's not just planning, it's not just building safety. Obviously, you have plan review, you have permits that would be pulled at some point, you have inspections, you have closeouts. But then it also becomes, do we have the capacity long-term to make sure that this remains clean, healthy, affordable housing, right? And so we've had a lot of conversation about that. So what, as we add, rental units, in terms of how our code works now, and how our rental process, in terms of inspections work now, Do we have the capacity within our code compliance office to continue to bring on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of units with the staff that we have now? And if not, what are we looking at in terms of budget implications? And are these types of developments actually bringing in enough money to actually pay for that? That makes sense. So, yeah, so I think those are conversations we have to have. The other thing is, since we do have some pilots in front of us today, we had asked, are you guys working on any type of policy in the administration to vet pilot requests, even with 10% variety?
Sure. We already have an application process.
Do you?
Plan,
Okay.
And that's where the staff reports you get.
Okay.
I've also shared all of the application
Right,
materials for the last 2 pilots that I've seen.
But if you remember, we asked for even more, right? So what we actually did with regards to a couple other communities, that there even has to be more extensive, as an example, like pro forma pieces, right?
We review
Because we get so many times, it seems like, because we don't have any hard construction, we don't have anything when they come to us. And so it really feels like they're coming to the city and just asking for as low as they possibly can and not really knowing whether or not they need it at 4 or 5%. And of course, why wouldn't they, right? The city is willing to give those out. But every time we do this, we obviously hurt ourselves in terms of our ability to actually provide public services. There was a comment at public comments, part of the public hearing, that for 1 acre of property, these multi-families were to get some $40,000. So that's, I think they said, above and beyond, maybe the $9,000 to $10,000 we give a single family. But if you actually do a cost study in terms of the city, but that 1 acre of multi-family is actually costing the city in terms of emergency response, it's not even close, right? So, so that was like those kind of conversations. They just, I don't think they're appropriate conversations. But again, because I haven't seen the policy and I necessarily haven't seen a study done on what, some of these sites cost, to the city of Lansing, because we want to make sure, again, we can provide public services to these people. Or what are we doing, right? It's one thing to house folks, but if you're not housing them in a way that can be transformative for them and help them to ascend, and we're just warehousing them, then I'd rather not. If that makes sense, right? Now we have to have a strong regional conversation. So again, that we're not trapping people in that poverty. So I just feel like this isn't a scientific, in my opinion, process. And so we can have that conversation about how do we get to more of a scientific process. You know what I mean?
All due respect, Councilman, that's a lot to unpack.
And that's fine. But with all due respect, Raleigh, this isn't the first time we've had this conversation. We've had it. I've been on council for 9 years, and I've been asking for this for 9 years. I know you haven't been here for 9 years, but our mayor's been in the seat for 7. So at some point, then everybody gets upset with us when we say, look, we don't think we can continue to do this. And people say, well, we can, but you can never prove us wrong. See what I'm saying? So, and that's just absolutely food for thought. Continue to have the conversation. But we are in you're in those conversations every year with regard to the budget. People in the community don't quite understand how much trouble we're in financially and how difficult it is to provide appropriate public services to this community. They just don't understand.
Sure. So let me say 2 comments and all of what you shared. First and foremost, during the application process for pilots, we do receive and require pro forma to be submitted. It does include hard and soft costs for the project. We do provide those materials, or at least I have provided those materials to this committee since I've joined staff. Happy to point out it's quite a lengthy supplemental document we provide, so I recognize and understand. We may not have the time to go through all of that, but that's what ultimately generates our staff report. And then secondly, we have budget priorities. It's a conversation. Always open to further support the code compliance office. We've raised fees specifically for multifamily rentals, hopefully generate additional fees. We're thankful for your support in the current year budget to add an additional staff person. So of course, as we add more housing units, we're going to need more code enforcement officers. So I've encouraged that support as we go into this.
And I appreciate that. But we even that, when we moved the last budget cycle, and we actually added the 1, and now you guys are doing whatever you want to do with that position. And I don't think we're really bringing it into the fold, and we've had the conversation, we can disagree, but really bringing it into the fold that actually allows the frontline workers out in the city to make sure that they have a little bit less on their plate, so that what they're delving into, they can do that in a really, in a way that's quality, right? And well thought out and whatever. Even that was, look, we haven't added the code district in years. We've had hundreds, if not thousands of rentals. Probably should add 1. That wasn't even scientific. It wasn't, you know what, best practices for how, based on our process, based on our rental numbers, we probably should have for every 2,000 rentals, we should probably have a code district. I don't know what that number is, but it wasn't even that. You know what I mean? And when I talk to folks, I don't know what they're telling you, I mean, you're the boss, but when I talk to folks out in the field, they're saying, we're getting our asses handed to us. Like, we are really struggling to certify, to follow up on, you know, any issues we have with the initial inspection. I mean, they're struggling. So then we can have more conversation, and maybe, I mean, I went through all of this. What I'm talking about in terms of what I want to see is not here. So we can certainly sit down together and look at that. And I'll tell you from now on, I'm going to be a no on any of these pilots unless what I need to see is in here. Sure. Thank you. Yes. Sure. Got it. All right. So we need a motion for this particular pilot to go out in front of council on the 3rd. For a vote on full council. Okay. There is a motion on the floor for the discussion. Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor say aye. 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 All those opposed, same sign. All right. Moving on. That takes us to, and I'm assuming Chris is here for this next item. Yeah, okay, come on up. We appreciate you. Absolutely. So we are talking about 1102 South Washington again. I'm excited. Hopefully this is the time where we actually bring a project across the goal line. Let's see. So we actually have both items C and D speak to a potential development at this particular property. Obviously, what we're being, no, it's not C. And E, my fault. D and E. There's a lot of this in the other. Yeah, so in any event, hopefully, I'm not going to get into it. That's what you guys are here for, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go and turn the floor over. Talk to us a little bit about the request, in terms of the pilot, the length of the pilot, what this particular group wants to do, all those great things. Go ahead.
Yeah, so 1102 South Washington
Hold on
Avenue.
one second. You guys have the presentation in front of you. All right. Yeah, perfect. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So as you alluded to, we've been here before, but 1102 South Washington Avenue is in Rio Town. It's the former Standard Oil building. So the request today, so just a brief overview, we'll describe what the OPRA is, the project overview, and then the OPRA request and impacts. So an OPRA is the Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act, and it provides a property tax exemption for rehabilitated commercial properties. So properties to be eligible for an OPRA exemption, they have to obtain a statement of obsolescence from the assessor and be located in an established OPRA district, which is why you have in front of you both the district and the certificate today. So that requires a two-step process. You have to establish the OPRA district, and then you have to approve the certificate. Even once, if it's approved through the locals, the state tax commission is ultimately responsible for the final approval and issuance of the OPRA certificate.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
Why do I feel like, because, obviously at one point this was going to be the second Pablo's. And I think it was in 2022 that the same entity announced that they were going to do like a food truck, food concept. And I feel like we created the district already. We didn't.
We got partially through the process, and then installed, and we ultimately.
So we never did that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So it did come to this committee, I believe, so
It's never-
you're not wrong. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
As I said, the former Standard Oil building, it did get the determination of functional obsolescence from the assessor in July of 2020. The total project investment will be $527,000. Proposed start date is January 1st of 2025, and the completion date would be December 31st, 2025. So it's a food and / restaurant concept with a vibrant outdoor space similar to the Little Fleet in Traverse City. There are two images here just to kind of demonstrate what the Little Fleet is. They did not did not print off well, so I will make sure to send that electronic copy. So the current conditions and the planned investment of the project. So there's been no business operating out of that since 2004, and that's to do with the development challenges of the property. It's been functionally obsolete as determined by the assessor. There's no heating or plumbing and therefore no restrooms. The property is a leaking underground storage site, which requires environmental remediation. And then there's just other environmental contaminations on site. So the $527,000 investment is to address and improve upon those site conditions. So you're going to have your mitigation, your demolition of portions of the building, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, the build out, the finishes, and then all the exterior improvements. So the request is for 12 years. The total tax abatement valued over 12 years is just over $44,000. For City of Lansing, the operating taxes abated over that same time period or just over $14,000, which is about 32% of the total abatement. The tax obligation paid over 12 years is $66,000, just above that. And the City of Lansing operating taxes, we will receive just over $13,000 during the length of the Oprah certificate. And once the certificate expires, the property is projected to generate just over $10,000 in property taxes, which is an increase of 140% compared to today. So that is the overview of the project and the request. Are there any questions?
So really, it's the same thing with the bank, if I recall, in 2022.
Very similar, yes. I think in this case, they have identified a user. So that's the
Oh, yeah.
main difference there.
Yeah, so it's
Are
Good
you
Truck.
able to say who that is?
I think it's an application.
Yeah, it's in the application. So Good Truck and Diner is looking to expand. And so there will either be, Good Truck and Diner will be there with other food concepts, but their current location is still going to be activated, whether it's Good Truck and Diner or some other.
That was my first question.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh, they do it. So, yeah.
yeah, so.
I think that's a huge difference from when I had brought this before you a few years ago. Is they had a plan and they've operated different businesses and things, but it was still very challenging times coming out of COVID for restaurants. So I think things have more or less stabilized. So they have that opportunity now as well with the trucking. So I think this, by moving this, kind of puts them on the clock too with expectations, with that support to get that building coming back. It has been vacant since.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions from?
I've got a question. So regarding food trucks in general, what is the city doing to make sure that they're not just dumping their grease into like the storm drains? Where's that grease, that dirty water, that dirty water going on?
City Attorney's Office or Administration, you might know.
I don't have the permits. I get back to, I do know that the fire marshal's office and the building safety office have been working on some proposed amendments to where and how fire trucks or food trucks can operate. I think back to the status of that in terms of grease disposal.
The city's policy, I don't know, we worked on it about a couple of years ago with the city code, after just not having the city to be involved. It does state in there, of course, that, the grease and gray water has to be disposed properly. I don't know how that's monitored.
I mean, is there any kind of permits the city is, because I brought this to the clerk's attention, probably a couple years ago. Just because speaking as a plumber myself, I know what grease does to our sanitary system. And if we're not putting that into a grease trap, it could potentially cost the city, quite a bit of dollars, down the road.
I can speak to one piece of that, not so much the regulatory works for food trucks specifically, but we have in the sewers ordinance, there's reference to traps for grease and fat and things. There's a proposed ordinance amendment that's coming from Public Service. We just reviewed it this morning, and it needs a couple of changes, but it will be coming through at some point soon for council to look at. And it includes, one of the problems includes the existing ordinance has inspections for those traps, but there's no fee associated with the inspections for those traps. And that takes time and costs money. And I think one of the significant changes in the ordinance at least has the the council would pass a fee related to inspecting those traps on a regular basis. So that's at least one of the things. And I know that the FOG is the acronym, fats, oils, and grease, right? Into the sewers. That is a thing that needs to be overhauled, and public service has undertaken to do that. How we define it, what the best practices are related to that, and then what the mechanisms are to trap and prevent it from getting into the sewers.
We can inquire about that as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think the benefit for this site, sorry, being, having a food establishment there, as well as, potentially having food trucks, that are so, permitted, and that is, they should have those facilities on site to, for the grease and that too. So we can see if that'd be available.
Is that in the plans to put
I think restaurants are required to have, if they have, they produce grease to have.
Yeah.
in the facility? Yeah.
Yep.
So I was just wondering if are they going to actually carry their tub into the building
I mean, it's generally prohibited for them to dump it directly into the sewers, like in an exterior drain. And we can sue people to do that.
Receptacle there for the
Sure.
restaurant.
Yes,
The trucks
correct.
would use that as well.
Absolutely. I just mean, if we ever have evidence of somebody taking it out to the curb and dumping it, let us know, we will sue them. So.
This one's closer to the river, so.
Sorry. Any other questions? Councilman Brown? Yeah, so what we're actually looking at, we'll do these respectively, but what we are looking to do is actually introduce this in front of the council on the 30th. And then we'll be setting a public hearing for both of them on the 14th. So we can consider item D first, which is the district. So the motion for support of the resolution setting a public hearing. It would be for October 14th. I didn't mess that date up, did I? Chris, is that right? I think that's what it is.
Sorry.
Okay, perfect. All right, motion on the floor, further discussion. Saying none. All those in favor, sorry, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, and then same thing for E. This is, however, the certificate. Kind of address both. Same thing, setting a public hearing for the 14th. All right, so there's a motion on the floor for the discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And I saw on your schedule, Chris, that you guys were preparing. Is that what I saw on there?
Yeah, so I think we'll be throughout the process and the.
Okay. The 30th, what we'll do is we'll actually bring it down. We'll speak very quickly to it.
Oh, okay.
We'll be excited that we're finally doing this thing. And then if there are specific questions, and then on the 14th, if you guys want to attend, that's fine. But I can take it that night in terms of the presentation. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on. We are to start, this is actually our final look at the budget priorities, 2025, 2026, specific to the Committee on Development and Planning. The 5 that are on the list have not fully been addressed. So I have not moved to strike those. But we are obviously entertaining additions. So if anything you guys don't think of that you want on there, specific language, that's fine. Nothing is good. And remember, if you guys bring things in terms of the mobile on Monday, just for staff, make sure that those are right. That won't be actually posted as people. No. Yeah. So you're good with those. Right. So these are going to go. All right, that takes us to, we got last night. Right, all right. So we're going to bring Andy Fiedewalk back up to the table. We're also going to Susan. Raleigh, what's that? Yep, Susan, come on up. And Councilman Brown wasn't at the last meeting. He was excused. We just talked about. So we had a presentation from Andy at our last meeting. Talked a little bit about the necessity of the Second Amendment, kind of how this came down the pike, what the Second Amendment you actually have. I really appreciated this time. And so they kind of talk about, there's a number of changes, and they talk about districts, and the fact that we're merging some districts and figuring out a number of districts, talking about allowing use table, I think. And then there are some changes that will allow us to move around, like cooperatives and cottage style properties. Cottage style, we have, how many units you said?
3 to 6.
3 to 6 units. So that's kind of, there's a lot here, but in a nutshell, that's kind of what this is. Did you have, based on last, I think it was September, about 2 weeks ago, do you have anything to add?
No.
No?
If there's any clarifying questions, we'd be happy to dig in.
Okay. Now, again, what I wanted committee members to have was a little bit of time to kind of dig in. You did ask some questions prior to moving this out and for introduction, setting up public hearing. I wanted to make sure we were able to ask those questions here. And I'm just not certain. Yes, I mean, if
And
you're
I
comfortable.
would reach out to you, Andy. Schedule is crazy busy, but
2 weeks goes fast.
It does, it really does. There's no way that was 2 weeks ago. It was.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to talk to a few stakeholders and talk to Andy as well. And stuff. I'm comfortable with this person. Talk to him. I remember, I see you everywhere, so.
I guess my biggest thing is I would never ask, obviously, for the committee to take a position on something before we have a public hearing, right? But I guess, do you have any questions regarding this in case we, as we're engaging the public, have questions? Anything here that's confusing, there's any clarification on, or you're pretty comfortable with the changes that are being proposed?
I'm pretty comfortable at this time.
I think you did a good job of spelling everything out as well. Just trying to
Yeah, this is
digest it all.
super helpful. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just say, there's been a little bit of growing pains, so this is why there's a second amendment, where I think we're in a good position to make it, simpler and better for all of our stakeholders as well as the city and code enforcement.
Yeah, this is just so much more substantial than the first amendment. That's why I wanted to
Yeah,
take a little bit of time to post, time to read through. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I think, if you guys are comfortable, I am comfortable. I've talked to folks at Lane, sat down very early on in the process, particularly with regards to some of the changes to allow for diversity in housing in the city of Lansing, down the box and Nelson. So I'm not necessarily against moving this out in the public hearing.
Motion.
So there is a motion on the floor. In my understanding, we could introduce this on the 30th with zoning. We still have a public hearing. Very well.
Yes, 15 days. So the, no,
No, it has to be.
One day shy.
It's gonna be a-
the 28th is the their next meeting. October 14th and then October 20th.
Okay, so what we're gonna do then is we can move this out. We can introduce this on the 30th. We have the public hearing on the 28th. Is that what we said? Okay, so we're gonna plug 28th into that resolution. Andy, can you be with us?
Yes.
Probably gonna be, obviously, you want to be there as soon as you want to be there. Because I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of questions.
Sue we did take the privilege yesterday to share two presentations of this committee with all of your rest of your colleagues yesterday and offer the same to the three of you for any one-on-ones they may decide over the next month. So
We appreciate it. Yeah. Fantastic. All right, so we'll see the motion. Motion on the floor. Further discussion? Do you want to go ahead?
No, actually, I don't need to say
Okay.
anything last time, but I did want to say, and thank you,
Sure.
Alan and Jason Lachowski from AARP, State
Oh, good.
Policy Analyst, have been hugely helpful members of the Shared Use Housing Advocacy Task Force. And I don't know, Jason, if you want to just say anything, or I just wanted to make sure
Go for it.
that you meant him.
Jason, what's your last name?
Lachowski,
Lachowski.
I'm the state advocacy analyst for AARP Michigan. I'm here to support the proposed zoning changes to allow accessory dwelling units. As you may know, AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to older adults. We currently have 1.25 million members in the state of Michigan and 11,000 here in Lansing. We support ADUs as an affordable, accessible housing option for people of all ages, but particularly for adults. ADUs can enable homeowners to provide needed housing for their parents, children, or other loved ones. We did a study in 2021, and nearly 60% of adults would consider living in an ADU. and nearly 3/4 of those polled said that they would be interested in creating the EDU as a place for a caregiver to stay. We do have,
Give that percentage.
60% of adults would consider living in an ADU, and nearly 3/4 of those polled said they would be interested in creating one for a caregiver to stay in. AARP does have quite a few resources. One of those is we have our ABCs of ADUs, which you can find online on AARP.org. It talks about lots of different options in terms of ADUs and why AARP has long supported them as a option for housing. And I appreciate the time to speak.
We appreciate you being here. All right. Don't want any confusion out there. There is a motion on the floor. Seeing no other discussion. Say aye. Both same sign. Motion carries. And talk a little bit about ADUs. We are on very quickly item H. This is the resolution heading part 12, Title 6, Chapter 12, accessory dwelling units. And we were at the last meeting. I don't think we had a lot of questions or concerns with this necessarily, but we wanted to move these two items together. Did you guys have anything to add to this? No. And what we're doing, we're being asked same thing, set a public hearing, correct? Resolution and. Okay. Any public comment on this? Mr. Joe Nelson, you have anything else to say?
I just wanted to thank both the staff and the council for taking the effort to dig into this and go into the details of it. This is an important step to seeing successfully one of the many, many things that we need to do to address the housing.
No problem. All right, we need a motion. Motion on the floor. Approve the public hearing from council, obviously, October 28th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. No other business before the body is prepared. Adjourned.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Appreciate you. What's that?
It's warming here. I'm getting out of this room.
Oh, yes.
It's coming Monday and 30th. Maybe there was one.
I caught that.
It's what it is.
Thank you.